I was an attorney for 18 years and practiced criminal law. And then I decided that I wanted to do something that had more purpose to me. And that's when I decided to do animal law and defend the activists. The first time I went out for lunch with activists during a trial, they all ordered vegan and I ordered something with chicken in it. This was during the mid-'80s. And they all looked at me. They didn't say anything, but they looked at me. And I knew I couldn't speak for them. I knew I couldn't represent them if I ate the animals that they were risking their freedom to save. I have never regretted becoming vegetarian. And I became vegetarian that day. It was a hinge moment, and I knew it at the time. It was going to change my life. That it was part of a path of meditation. It was part of a path of yoga. It was part of a path of spirit to me. And that choice has changed everything that came after. In a life, there are 3 or 4 hinge moments that change everything. And for me, becoming vegetarian was one, and then making the final move to veganism was another one. I have never regretted it. I don't miss the taste of meat at all, or of dairy at all. And I've become a happier person. I've become a person that I think can lead with my heart now because I'm not killing. Since I've become vegan, I've noticed that I have more energy. I've noticed that I don't get allergies as much, I don't get colds as much, I don't have the ups and downs that I used to have, which were a part of the chemicals that are in meat, actually, and in dairy. So I have this sort of steady feeling of well-being and purpose. The people in my family don't live long, generally. I'm setting a world's record at 79, and I think that's due to the fact that I'm vegan. I attribute it to that, and I don't really know, but to me, it's made all the difference in my spiritual path. It's made a difference in my meditation. The meditations are deeper, and I feel I understand myself more. It would be hard to be someone who kills. We don't need to kill in order to live. This has been something we've learned, and this has been something that's common in so many of our families. I've noticed from the people that I defend that many of them have said they had conflicts with their family because of the choice they've made to go vegan. And I said, you have to go your own path, and you can do this with compassion. You can explain your path without judging somebody else's path. That is the key. I think that it's important for others to be vegan because that's the one thing that you can do as an individual. I've mentioned that it doesn't take an act of Congress or a court decision. It's something that you can do out of your own commitment. And the commitment is to life, to preserving life, to supporting and healing the world. It would have such an effect on the climate. It would have an effect on the way people treat each other because they wouldn't have all those fear adrenalines running through their bodies. So I do feel it's important for other people to do it. And I do feel that it would help the environment. It's certainly going to help the animals because they live in hell. The animals in factory farms and slaughterhouses live in hell, and I don't want to participate in that. I will do everything I can to stop that. I don't have any regrets about going vegan. I wish I had known what I know now 10 years earlier than I did, because I was busy consuming animals, and that participates in their pain and suffering and death. So I wish I'd done the kind of reading that I'm doing now and that I did 20 years ago. I wish I had done that earlier, and I could have, but I didn't know that that would be my mission in life. And I have found a mission in life, and I have never deviated from it, and I've never regretted it at all. Okay, I was a vegetarian for many years, and I have shared that it was because I went out to eat with the defendants that I was defending, and they let me know by their posture that I was doing something that was cruel. And that was many years ago. That was in the mid-'80s. And I didn't become fully vegan until about 2014. And that is something I wish I'd done earlier. Cheese was difficult for me. It was cheese that was the last thing I gave up. And yes, I wish I had done that 10 years earlier than I did, or 20 years earlier than I did. I enjoy being an activist because it's part of my personality. I like to do public speaking, and that's my contribution, the way I feel that I can do it. My wife hands out cards to everybody she meets about veganism. But for me, I like to participate in gatherings and share my experiences. And if they resonate with other people, that makes me happy. And if they don't, I'm not going to judge them because they have to live their own karma out. And I don't want to be a person that judges others if they don't do it. But I will talk about it when I have the opportunity and when the person is someone that I feel I can speak to without them being angry, without them feeling that I'm judging them. Yes. Okay, I have had challenges being vegan, but I've never questioned it from the day that I became vegan. The challenges mainly were with my family. They were supportive of my work in general, but none of them eat like I eat. And it made it difficult for me to have Thanksgivings with them and Christmas with them and other meals with them because we would have to have 2 separate meals, and that made it more complicated for everybody. So I just said that I'll do my own thing a lot of the time. And a lot of the time they said that they would be willing to do that if it was at their house. If it was at my place, of course, there'd be a vegan option. But I've become accustomed to going into a restaurant and asking if they have a vegan option. And doing so with kindness, not with judging them that they're bad people. They're just doing what they learned, just as I did what I learned for the first 30 years of my life. Non-judgmentalism is part of this path, and veganism is a big part of the path. It's the physical part of the path, it's the spiritual part of the path. The resources I would suggest to anybody who's interested in veganism would be this book, Vegan Voices. This book expresses the people's journeys and how hard it was for some of them, and the feedback they got from family and friends, some of whom were not pleased by this change, because when one member of a family changes, it changes the whole dynamic. So I would suggest reading about the effect of animal agriculture on the climate, effect on your own bodies, effect on your own spiritual practice. For me, the first book that I read, which convinced me to become a vegetarian, this was back in the 80s, was Animal Liberation by Peter Singer. When I read that book, it exposed the suffering involved in animal agriculture. And I knew I couldn't be part of that anymore. And that's the one that convinced me that I was going to have to do something about this. I couldn't ignore it any longer. And there are several other books, but I would suggest Vegan Voices and Animal Liberation as a start to your reading. So reading and going and watching movies about this, there's a lot of good ones out there. They're on YouTube, they're on every outlet you can imagine. And if you watch these movies and you read these books, then you'll have a choice to make. You can't say anymore that you don't know, because then you know, and then it's a choice.